Hello, everyone. Happy Tuesday. Hope you guys are all having an incredible late Tuesday afternoon. It's actually dinner time. It is definitely not the afternoon. Getting to nighttime here. Hello. We are live today on both TikTok and Instagram. So if you see me looking back and forth a little bit, that is why. We have two audiences going on here at the same time. So I will do my best to make sure we're getting to everybody, but we have an amazing topic that I want to jump into today. And this is going to be solely focused on always chosen consciousness. So if you've been around the block with me for a while, you've been watching my content, maybe you're even just getting started in my world. Maybe you just saw an ad, and ever since you saw that ad, you've been following up on my content, reading my emails, and you've heard me talking about always chosen consciousness quite a bit at this point. You hear me say it all the time, how when I attracted my relationship into my life, I stepped into this always chosen consciousness. And I used to call it always chosen identity, but I feel like recently with the up level that has happened in my life, we are now at always chosen consciousness. This is what I've been called to call it. And this is a term I've never heard anybody else use. I do feel like it was kind of like dropped into my lap to help my people who come into my world understand what it's like and feels like to step into this level of conviction. And so that is why I have called it always chosen consciousness, because I just felt like it encapsulated what this feels like, what it feels like to be in this level of conviction with yourself where there is not a single doubt. Like you feel like you are just open for miracles. Relationships turn around for you in ways that you never thought possible before. Finances and money is just growing in your life in ways you've never experienced before, because you're living in this world, this identity of always chosen consciousness. So we are going to do a deep dive today of what it looks like to step into always chosen consciousness, what needs to be dissolved and what you have to get rid of and what you need to make available for you to receive and step into this always chosen consciousness. Because when you when you do step into always chosen consciousness, you guys, be prepared. Be prepared, because your life is going to drastically change. Your love life is going to drastically change. Your mindset is going to drastically change. Your mental health is going to drastically change. Your bank account is going to drastically change. Your health is going to drastically change, right? So over the last year, I have stepped into deeper levels of always chosen consciousness, and my life has significantly changed. But let's draw back a little bit, because I want to tell you about where I came from and the level of consciousness I used to operate out of before I stepped into this always chosen consciousness. So you see that this wasn't always the case. This was not always the way it was, okay? So I grew up, like a lot of you, in a household where there was a lot of chaos. My parents got along maybe a handful of times. My dad was an alcoholic, so my mom was always basically caretaking him. And at the ripe age of 7 years old, I would follow him around from room to room to room to make sure he was safe, to make sure he wasn't harming himself, to make sure that he wasn't taking swigs of bottles or hiding bottles anywhere. And also just to fully protect my safety, because I was very unsure if my dad was ever going to be of harm to me because of his condition, right? And so very, very early on, I became hyper vigilant, and I carried this with me all throughout my life. And around the age of 21, it really started to take a peak. It really started to get to a point where most days of my life, I could not wake up and feel good. I was breaking down on the floor all the time. I was in and out of different therapist office, handed bottle. I mean, this woman one time shoved 7 bottles of pills in my face and said I had to take each one every single day. I could not relax in my body whatsoever. And at the time, at that point, I was in a relationship, the same relationship for 3 years. And this anxiety and this identity was pouring into the relationship that I had been in at that moment. And I was always checking the person I was in a relationships with phone. Who are you texting? Who are you emailing? Are you cheating on me? I constantly felt below him. Like it was any moment. I had this imposter syndrome, right? It was like any moment he was going to become too good for me. Any moment he was going to turn around and see I wasn't actually the woman for him because I was just like on this low level consciousness and he was rising and he was. And I could feel the space growing in between us, right? And I wasn't allowing myself to step into deeper conviction and grow. And I use that as a continuation of solidifying this, what I like to call the almost chosen identity. So it's like I almost get the good relationship and then we grow apart and they become so incredible and amazing and I'm left behind, right? Or I end up pedestaling the person and feeling like they're too good for me and I can't be in a relationship with that person. Or feeling like there was always going to be another woman who would show up who was better than me. How many of you guys can relate to that? Feeling like anytime you start feeling interest in a man, or maybe you've even been in a relationship where you're always concerned with or worried that there's going to be another woman chosen over you, or you might even experience other women coming in and showing up as another option for the person you desire to be in a relationship with. I know so many of you guys can relate to that, right? So that's what was happening. And what I thought I needed to do when that stuff was happening was fight the person I was experiencing that with. So I was constantly berating the guy I was in a relationship with. Why are you looking at other women? Why are you flirting with other women? Why are other women attracted to you? Why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? I always had this external locus of control because in my head, I was still under the impression that he was doing something to me, that he was purposely going out of his way to put me in a bad position or make me feel belittled or make me feel almost chosen, right? Make me feel like I was below him or below other women. So I would take that anger out on him and I would create stories in my head until eventually they would manifest. And that relationship fizzled out and I had a lot of lessons to learn. I had a lot of lessons to learn from that relationship because I was totally unaware of myself. I was totally unaware of how I was perpetuating an identity and a stored unconscious system that was continuously creating what happened in my childhood with my father, recreating that chaos. I didn't know what it was like to be in boredom. When you're in a really healthy relationship, sometimes you're bored because there's just not that chaos all the time. You're not fighting, you're not picking on each other, you're not nagging each other, right? So I didn't know what it was like to feel that peace and that calm. So anytime peace and calm would set in inside of that relationship, I would start a fight. Or I would literally think in my head, hey, this is exactly what I would think in my head. You know, it's been a long time since we had an argument. Maybe we should soon. We're probably going to have a fight soon. And like clockwork, that night, within 24 hours, every single time we'd be in a heated argument and I wouldn't be contacting him for 4 or 5 days. And it was this cycle over and over and over and over again. So eventually I left that relationship and met my now fiance. When I met him, I was in one of the more confident places I had ever been in my life because before this, I was in that long-term relationship, I think 6.5 years. So I didn't know what it was like yet to be on my own. I was just starting to come in and feel that conviction within myself for the first time. But I had never really done the work on myself that I'd done at this point, right? I was kind of just assuming, oh, you know what? I'm single now. I'm open to a relationship coming in, so it should work out, right? But nothing actually really changed for me at the bodily level, because when you're not being exposed to the exact desire you say you want, you're not being exposed to the relationship, the commitment, the exclusivity, the man, the money, whatever it is, it's difficult to know exactly what your patterns are because they're not being triggered in the moment. So I met my now fiance, John, and we hit it off really, really well. Really, really well. We had such a great time together. I remember our first date. By the end of the date, I was like, and he's a little younger than me too, which I was a little nervous about. And I remember thinking to myself at the end of the date, like, wow, I didn't even notice the age gap. I feel like I've been around this person my whole life. Like, we just really connected and bonded. We had the same music tastes, and we were talking about the Beatles and Led Zeppelin and all these classic bands that I grew up on, and our aspirations in life, what we desired, the multiple real estate properties around the world, and being able to create for our children one day what we didn't have growing up, and the stability and the security. And I felt like right away we had that connection, and we were very much on the same page and of where we wanted to go in life, right? Which of course you always want with the person you're in a relationship with. So time went on, and we continued to spend time together. And the question eventually came up for me. I was like, okay, well, is this relationship going anywhere? And I was very quickly shot down. When I had asked that question, you guys, about is this relationship going anywhere, I was already coming from a place of scarcity and lack. If you were asking the question of is this relationship going anywhere, you're already coming from a place of scarcity and lack. I can 100% guarantee you that. I felt like I needed to step up in that moment and say something so I did not lose him, so I could make it known that I wanted to move this relationship forward, so that I could see where he was at, right? So I could energetically manage where he was at to feel reassurance and calmness in myself, because I was uncertain. I wasn't sure. Didn't know if this relationship was going anywhere. Right? And I was very quickly shot down. He didn't want anything more than friendship. He just wanted to see where it was going. And I would have told you before this that there was not one thing a man could say to me that would knock me off of my conviction. I would have told you that a man can reject me right to my face and I would not be bothered. But let me tell you, I was bothered. I certainly was. Why? Because I was still operating from almost chosen consciousness. And when you're operating from almost chosen consciousness, rejection doesn't just hit you and linger for 30 seconds. It hits you and lingers for days and weeks. And then you try to fix the person who rejected you so that you don't have to feel that pain and that hurt. But when you're in always chosen consciousness, you're able to see rejection at face value for what it is, and hold an identity and hold a vision of where this is going no matter what. But I was unable to do that at that moment because I had no fucking idea how to even do that. I didn't have the awareness that that was even possible, right? So I founded the manifestation community, and I founded a lot of people who were manifesting relationships with specific persons. How many of you have been in content like that before, or tried to do that before, or tried to do a lot of techniques or spirituality or self-development to attract a specific somebody into your life? Because this is what I was doing. The problem was, however, I still never changed. So I was trying to change him to feel always chosen in myself. I did not feel always chosen. I was affirming, I'm obsessed with, he loves me, he's calling me all the time. And then 2 minutes later, I'd be on my phone to see if it was actually working, right? I was coming from this identity of scarcity and lack, and you cannot fake it. You cannot try to pretend like that's not happening. You cannot hide from the source. You can't. You can affirm all you want. If in your body you do not feel in conviction with being always chosen, it will not reflect back to you. Been there, done that, tried that tons of times. It always fizzled out. I would always get what people would like to call hot and cold movement. I would always get these experiences of he would all of a sudden start to call me and ask me to come over and text me all the time. And then 3 days later, I'm like, has he even said good morning? Has he said anything? There's knots in my stomach. I'm feeling like I'm going to be rejected. I'm feeling like he's possibly seeing other people behind my back, right? This is what was going on. I was trying to put on a costume for 5 minutes of being always chosen. Then I would take the costume off for the rest of the day. But it can't work like that. It just doesn't. Tried it, been there, done that, does not work. Okay? So if this is where you're at right now, and you have been viciously trying to change somebody, you have been trying to call in an exclusive relationship, you're dating and you're going on tons of dates and swiping left and right on Hinge like it is your full-time job, and none of these relationships are landing in happy long-term exclusivity. It's not that you're dating the wrong men. It is not that you're not doing what you're supposed to do in order to attract a relationship. It is who you are being going into these dates. It is who you are being speaking to these men. It is who you are being when you are texting him back. It is who you are being when he's not texting you and he's not calling you and he's not FaceTiming you. It's the stuff that's going on behind the curtain, I would argue, mattered the most. Okay? So what happened? One day a light bulb went off in my head. And I said to myself, why am I forcing and trying so hard to get this person to change so I could feel better? Something about this feels backwards. It felt backwards because even though I was choosing what I desired to happen in the relationship, I wasn't feeling like the woman where that was actually occurring. And so there was a gap, and there continued to be a gap until I had this epiphany one day. And that is when I turned that whole system on its face. This is where the unconscious communication system was literally handed down to me from God, I swear. And I was able to activate my always chosen consciousness and watch the man who once tried to tell me he just wanted to be friends and he was interested in other options and there was still an ex lingering around that they had custody of a dog with. I watched that turn around. And so many therapists or relationship coaches or whoever who witnessed this situation would have said what? They would have said, run. You better not waste any more time. Take that man for face value. He's using you. He's not going to ever commit. He's going to waste your time, right? But I chose to do something different. I chose to turn off all the noise. I chose to be open to this relationship or something better. But at the end of the day, I was now going to be in the experience of relationships are a cherry on top and not my missing puzzle piece. How many times have you heard men or women say or call their partner their better half or their missing puzzle piece? How many times have you maybe said that? How many times have you thought your partner or the person you want to be with was your other half or your missing puzzle piece? Can you see how that perception automatically smallens you and makes you this incomplete person without this other person? I've never seen a relationship work out consistently where a woman or man is under the impression that that person is their other half. When somebody is your other half, you're usually in some level of codependency. You're usually in some level of every single day I wake up and my emotional well-being depends on if this person is choosing me, if they're in a good mood, if they're having fun today. What they're doing completely changes who you're being on a day-to-day basis. That is codependency, and that is never going to create the healthy, stable, harmonious, secure relationships you want. You cannot wake up every single day with this person, what they're doing right now, what they're not doing right now on your mind, and then say you're in always chosen consciousness. Those two things do not go hand in hand. It will never go hand in hand. You have to be able to step into always chosen consciousness independent of what he is saying or doing or how men are showing up in your life right now. Okay? This is where my unconscious communication system came in. And it's a 3-step process because all 3 pieces, while they don't necessarily have to be in order, I will say that you'll find yourself really going from the first to the second to the third before kind of blending them all together. The unconscious communication system consists of shadow work, emotional clearing, and exposure work, which is, in my opinion, the most important portion and the most focused on portion. So what did I have to do in regards to my unconscious communication system in my situation? I had to understand and look at from an unshameful place, right? You have to do this from an unshameful place, or you're just going to stay the same because you're just turning your heart away from yourself. I had to look at where, okay, yeah, I do notice that my emotional well-being is dependent on this person every day. I do notice that I'm waiting around for him to choose me so I could feel relaxed and calm and like I'm waking up on a tropical island every morning, right? I'm waiting for him to basically give me the permission to do that. I notice when I'm getting texts from him, how relaxed and stable I feel. But as a little bit of time would go on and I didn't get a reply back, I would start to get that tightness in my chest again and that knot in my stomach because my mind was starting to turn into stories. What is he doing? Where is he going? Who is he seeing? Who is he hanging out with, right? You can go on for 1,000,000 miles an hour, come up with 1,000,000 different things, right? I had to be very honest with where I was doing that, right? The first step is always awareness. Then I had to move on to emotional clearing because at this point I had already, and a lot of you feel this way, I had put a lot of investment and mental fortitude into the relationship and really thought it was going somewhere. I really tried to show up, right? Like a wifey or like a girlfriend, really tried to put all my eggs into that one basket so that he would commit to me. It wasn't from this place of faith and knowing. It was like I'm going to show up this way so that he does X, right? It was an attachment to an outcome. So because of that perception I was operating from, I ended up building up a lot of resentment towards him, feeling angry, right? Why aren't you committing to me? I'm doing all this work over here and I'm affirming and I'm scripting and I'm doing X, Y, Z and I'm working on myself and you're not reflecting it back to me. So now I'm creating this anger and this resentment and this tightness. I'm not coming from a place of unconditional love. Not for him and certainly not for myself. Right? So I had to use the emotional clearing portion of the unconscious communication system to fully, entirely shift out of that. To be able to hold love for myself again. To be able to feel good within myself again. To be able to hold love for him and understand and take accountability for why he was mirroring that back to me in the first place. If you know that you're experiencing this type of relationship and he's showing up unexclusively right now, and you know where your accountability is in this situation, how can you be resentful anymore? Because now you know that you're in control of that. Right? And when you understand that and you can hold that love for yourself that, hey, I didn't have that level of awareness yet. I didn't have that level of consciousness when this resentment was building up in my body. So I can let that go because I'm now different. I now see this differently. I now hold a different perception. I'm now operating at a different level of consciousness around this situation. Right? And so I was able to dissolve that emotional piece. And also there is a Audio, if any of you guys are in Overnight Success 2.0, that is where my unconscious communication system exists. And there is an emotional clearing audio that actually goes into the unconscious part of your mind where emotions are stored and turns down the nozzle on resentment, guilt, fear, anger, any of those emotions that get in the way of allowing you to hold yourself and relationships in a loving light, right? Because how are you going to be intimate? How are you going to have a deep, loving connection with somebody if you're always resentful towards them, if you were always angry towards them, if you always have this like love-hate relationship going on with them in your mind? You're not. You're going to be very hot and cold, right? And so you're going to get those results back to you through him. Then I had to move on to what I was saying earlier to you guys, the most important piece, which was exposure work. Exposure work is huge. I will say the first two pieces are required in order for you to properly do exposure work. So how did I do exposure work? What did that look like in my case scenario? Just hold questions, you guys. I will do a Q&A at the end of this. So in regards to exposure work, here, I'll just give you a couple examples. I would go over his house, right? There was a good period of time where we were not seeing each other, where we were physically not in each other's presence. I believe we went a month and a half or something around there where we did not see each other once. Communication was never completely no contact, but it was very minimal. It was like a freaking Snapchat picture of a steering wheel at nighttime. Like that's what it looked like. So in a way, I was forced into having to create this always chosen consciousness within myself, because if he's not around anymore, then what is your point of external locus, right? Where are you going to get your stability and your security if he's not even showing up right now, right? So I was in a way forced into having to expose myself into always chosen consciousness without his validation or without him mirroring it back to me for quite a bit of time. However, as I deepened my feet into this work and the situation started to turn around and change and communication became very consistent and we were spending a lot more time together, there was still what a lot of you would probably consider a pretty big circumstance on the table. Two pretty big circumstances. One, his ex was still lingering in the picture. They were still passing this dog that they bought together back and forth, going on walks with the dog, etc. And he was still having conversations with me about not wanting commitment, not wanting exclusivity, just wanting to have fun, right? How many of you could confidently sit there, have the person that you want to be in a relationship with tell you to your face that they don't want to be in a relationship with you right now, and you could confidently hold a vision of what you want to happen anyways without being triggered? How many of you could do that? But because I had already started taking myself through the unconscious communication system, when we would start having these conversations, I would expose myself and use it as a tool, as an opportunity to deepen my conviction even more. So was I ever not triggered again by these conversations? No. The difference was because I had already started doing all the other stuff in the background, those triggers lessened and lessened and lessened until those conversations actually became comical. They actually became funny to me. I was so tuned out of all the psychologists' takes on relationships and this person's take on relationships and this person's take on red flags in a man and this person's take and this person's take. And I was so focused on the vision I had for my love life, whether it was with him or somebody else, that him still reflecting back to this back to me was comical. It was funny. I was able to literally sit there. It was hard not to laugh because I became so tapped into that vision because of who I had become while we weren't really talking much, that him telling me he just wanted to be friends to my face was like, okay, bullshit. okay, anyways, you call me every day. We're FaceTiming every night. We're doing this, we're doing that. I'm not stupid. I know what you want, right? I was so firm in knowing what was going to happen. There was no doubt. There was no amount of, ooh, am I gaslighting myself? Am I delusional? Am I setting myself up for failure and to be hurt and to be taken advantage of, right? All of those old belief systems had completely wiped out of my body, had completely wiped out of my system. And so you telling me to my face that you just wanted to be friends at this point was comical. I knew in that moment what I was experiencing was a lag of time. I knew I was experiencing a lag of what I chose. And so I was able to keep deepening into this unconscious communication system. And what started to happen, you guys, I have to say, this is the best part. Like, I love being in the relationship. I love my man. I love what we've created together. I love all that. But there is nothing better than waking up every single day and knowing that your internal conviction and your chosenness doesn't come from anybody but you, and you know how to create that on autopilot. And it's just happening naturally. You don't even have to think yourself or move yourself into that anymore. It's just happening naturally. It's happening on autopilot. I remember driving around, and I used to go to Starbucks and get my green matcha lattes, matcha tea lattes, whatever they're called. I still get them to this day. And I have John hooked on them too. And then I would go next door to the Chick-fil-A and get my grilled chicken sandwich. And I'm like, oh my God, I fucking love life. Like, I would wake up every single day so excited to see what life had to offer me. I had become so engulfed in my own vision, in what I wanted for my life, so ambitious in my own self, that the relationship became a cherry on top more and more and more and more. It was just an addition. It became an addition to the wholeness I created within myself, because I had installed the safety that comes with being an always chosen consciousness through the unconscious communication system. And I was able to, what started happening is I would start saying no. When John would call me sometimes and want to hang out or go out or whatever, there'd be moments where I'm like, I'm enjoying my life right now. Talk to you later. Not from a place of like, I'm going to be so detached and pretend I'm not interested in you anymore so that you give me more attention. It wasn't like that at all. It was more so from this place of like, I'm genuinely just enjoying my life so much right now. I'm unwilling to walk away from this feeling. I'm unwilling to walk away from this goodness. There were times where we would be together, maybe for like 2 days at a time, right? And I'd be like, I'm actually going to go home and recalibrate myself and really continue to strengthen this always chosen consciousness in myself again before I return back in your physical atmosphere, right? I realized that taking space, right? Retreating back into myself and continuing to strengthen this identity, right? Or you might have heard this as like pouring into your own cup, right? Allowed me to hold that love and light for him. It allowed me to hold that love and light for myself. It allowed me to hold always chosen consciousness, even if my Facebook status still said single, even if he still just wanted to be friends, even if all his family and friends were asking him and us all the time if we were together and he was still saying no. Stop giving a shit. Because in my body, I was already experiencing devotion. And I knew it was only a matter of little bits of time until I observed it, because I never took the costume off. I wasn't wearing the always chosen consciousness costume for 5 minutes and then taking it off because a circumstance showed up. I was able to even view my circumstances through that always chosen consciousness. I had the costume on all the time. So what started to happen? all of the sudden, those FaceTime calls and those consistent text messages turned into wanting to hang out almost every day. I mean, this man would purposefully have my favorite food ordered so that he had a reason to ask me to come over his house. That was not the case before. He was planning dates, Topgolf dates, knowing exactly what time we were going to be going to certain places, what time he was going to be taking me to one of my favorite restaurants, having me meet first, second, third cousins, right? His emotional wall, right? I would have labeled him as an emotionally avoidant or emotionally unavailable man earlier on. I would have, because it always felt like there was something I couldn't break through into him. I was always trying to break through into like a more warm, open version of him, right? But that was back when I was fighting with the mirror. I was fighting with the mirror. That emotional wall I thought he had up was me. It was what I was perceiving because of where I was in my consciousness, and it was being reflected back to me through him. And then I was then labeling it to concrete that label even more, to concrete the identity and what I thought back then even more. So one day I walk into his house and he's sitting on the couch, and I mean literally standing there with his arms open like this, like waiting for me to come give him a hug. And I was like, yeah, this shit just locked in. Like, this shit just locked the fuck in. I went in the house not expecting, just being in Always Chosen Consciousness. And it seemed like that emotional wall, that emotional unavailability I used to think was there, was gone overnight. It seemed like fucking magic. And I guess you can say in a way it was. I don't think of this type of work as fully magic, but I do think of it as this identity mixed with the co-creation with source. So I guess you can say in a way it was, but I had never seen something in my life that I had previously had so much attachment to that I at one point thought would never change, that most people would probably argue could never change before my eyes and never go back since. Some of you guys might have seen my Instagram story this morning. This man hands me the most incredible breakfast, weighs out all my food for me, my macros, because I follow my macros, my egg whites, my egg, my steak on the side. We had steak and eggs this morning. I don't think I have it in here. He just bought me the most beautiful purse. He is the most loving, caring, adoring man I have ever met in my life. And on top of it, we are growing an empire together, you guys, in our own ways. But of course, that comes together in ways as well. It has not changed since then. A lot of people are good at creating some results in their love life. They're aware of their patterns. They're aware of where they're still attached. They're aware of when they're dropping back into Almost Chosen Consciousness, but they cannot get Always Chosen to stick long enough to see all the way through results where you're 5 years in and now we got the ring on the finger, right? Most of you guys are not new to this work. You are not beginners. But there is still gaps in areas where you can clean up your patterns so you can stay in Always Chosen Consciousness. And that is where I come in, because I have done it myself. And I have a proven system that has not just taken me there, but thousands of other women. I had one client who was in a off and on dynamic with the same man for, it was between 8 and 10 years. Years. It was an ex-partner she dated way, way, way back. They fizzled out, had kids with other people, built entire lives. But she always had this feeling of wanting to be back with him. She always had this feeling of like, I would actually like to spend the rest of my life with him. And she had done tons of twin flame work. She had invested in twin flame work. She had invested in lots of programs and courses. She jumped into private mentorship with me, and within 3 months, this exact man that had been hot and cold in and out of her life was moving in with her, exclusive with her, flying her out places. And it has been 1.5 to 2 years now, and she is in one of the most incredible relationships I have ever seen because of this system. Because I knew how to get her from these hot and cold results she would create only when she was feeling good and high vibe to a consistent experience of devotion. To a consistent experience of devotion. And so it's what she got. I had another client who was single for 3 years, manifesting men into her life. And every single time she would call a man into her life, there would always be another woman on the side. He'd be dating somebody else. And then he'd be kind of like using her as a side piece. And it was just this consistent of experience of the same thing over and over and over again. And a lot of people experience this. And then we end up accidentally, it's not even your fault, accidentally blaming and thinking it's all about him. It's what he's doing. It's what he's doing to me. Why does this happen to me? You're not purposefully putting yourself into victim mentality. It's just how we were taught. All of us were only really taught how to externalize our locus of control. We never realized what role we played in it. And like I said, she is now in one of the most incredible, amazing relationships. This man sends her flowers to her office on a weekly basis, and we work together privately over, I believe, a 2 to 3 month span to create this for her. I had another client who was 3 years into an unexclusive relationship. So she was showing up like a wife, showing up like a girlfriend. Their kids were friends. They were going on vacations together. There weren't other women in the picture. He just refused to put a label on the relationship. And they would always have conversations about how he could never really, truly call her the one, right? How frustrating is that to invest all of this into somebody for 3 years and never be chosen by that person, right? Again, this was somebody who was not a beginner to this work. She had done a lot of self-development. She had done a lot of consciousness work and self-concept work and all of that stuff, but this was still going on. So she came in, we worked together on this privately. Of course, I took her through the unconscious communication system. We saw which shadows she was playing out, where she was still waiting on him to decide that she was always chosen. We cleaned up the areas where she was still emotionally tethered to whether he was choosing her or not. We cleaned up all the places where she thought she was being used, where she thought she was wasting her time. So by the time everything changed. She was feeling so fucking phenomenal. But by the time things actually shifted and adjusted, she said they were sitting in the car together and he brought up marriage. At this point, they're already in an exclusive relationship with a title. And he brought up marriage. And she was like, Dina, like, it feels so just normal and neutral to me. Whereas if he would have brought this up a year ago, I would have been jumping out of the car of excitement. But when you're an always chosen consciousness, exclusivity and devotion and men showing up for you are just the baseline. It's just the standard. It's not something that you need to consider as a one and done thing. It's a consistent experience that we've installed into the body. And this is what we were able to create for her through the unconscious communication system. So does it matter if you've been single for 42 years and every single man you've dated has not moved into exclusivity, or every relationship you've been in has fizzled out into nothingness. Does it matter if you're in no contact with somebody for 4 years? Does that mean you'll never be able to have the healthy, happy, harmonious relationship you desire where you wake up and that shit feels like a tropical vacation? Does it matter if somebody left and started dating somebody else, but you're left behind feeling like you still wanted a continued relationship with them? Do the circumstances that your mind have created and made a problem out of, is there a certain circumstance that's showing up where you cannot also have the results I'm talking about, like my clients did or like I did? No. That does not exist. The level of problem you allow yourself to be aware of is what will stick around in your life. If you continue to make third parties and other women and singleness, and you've been experiencing the same men in a different body for the last 40 years and you're stuck on that being your experience, then yes, you will continue to experience that. If you do not learn how to break away from almost chosen consciousness into always chosen consciousness. That's just how it works, right? However, when you take yourself through the unconscious communication system, I don't want to tell you that you're not going to want the relationship anymore. You will, but you're going to know what it's like to desire a relationship from a healthy, stable standpoint. I was saying to a client before, a lot of women do not know what it's like to desire a man without obsession and need. So the minute that obsession and need leaves their body, they start to think that they don't even want him anymore, when in reality, you've just never experienced what it's like to want somebody from a neutral, healthy standpoint. It feels totally different. It feels so expansive. It feels spacious, right? I was working with a client in one of my 30-day love ascension intensives. And for a year, she had, every single time this man had reached out to her, texted her, called her, whatever, she felt this urgent need to text back right away and make sure she said the right thing and make sure she called him back so she didn't lose him, so that she didn't give him too much time to go find another option, right? She was operating from this almost chosen consciousness. But because in 30 days, we worked on that together, she was like, I have not felt this much spaciousness in years. I have not felt the feeling of not needing to respond to surface level, superficial communication that I don't want to respond to ever, without feeling like I needed to. For the first time in years, I feel the level of spaciousness that the always chosen woman feels, because the always chosen woman doesn't feel the urgent need to reach back out so she doesn't lose him. The always chosen woman doesn't feel the need to respond to surface level, superficial text messages that don't match a reality that she doesn't want to be in. The always chosen woman doesn't feel threatened by just friends and situationships, because she knows what she experiences at the end of the day is not that. So why would she respond or react to something that wasn't? Right? You're going to be her for a while your circumstances still don't match it. You're going to. If you guys have been following me on Instagram, you'll know, or you've been reading my emails, you'll know that I've been talking about the DRM identity. And the DRM identity stands for Dina Rossi Millionaire. And I chose to step into this identity last month. And since then, my business has gone through the roof. I have more time and more spaciousness than ever. I am looking at purchasing things in my life that I had never even allowed myself to consider owning. And I I mentally came into the idea of 2 new programs that are going to blow the absolute F out of this world. Like, they are going to change this world. They are going to change the collective consciousness around both relationships and finances. because I stepped into this identity, I came into these awarenesses, and I had many opportunities to step out of DRM in the meantime. There were many opportunities to be like, nope, no, I'm not her. My reality is not showing it back. But because I have locked into, and because I've taken myself through the unconscious communication system so many times, I'm really good at handling the in-betweens of owning and then observing the results of a new identity, right? But I don't even think it's been a month. I think it's only been 3 weeks. In that little bit of time, my life and my business and honestly everything has completely changed. This is the beauty of the unconscious communication system. So how can you start experiencing this for yourself? Because now you have the logic. Now you understand how and why it works. Now you understand why, okay, I understand my patterns. I know what happens. I know why exclusive relationships and happy, harmonious relationships and relationships where we're not fighting and we're like a power couple. I understand why I'm in no contact, why all of these experiences have been the current. But now you need to embody this work, because this doesn't happen on a conscious level. That's where a lot of people get stuck. They get stuck just thinking, oh, I'm chosen now. Oh yeah, I'm chosen now. Oh, I'm chosen now. But it's never embodied. They don't know what to do on a daily basis, because like I was saying earlier, you cannot take the costume off. You cannot be always chosen for 10 minutes. But a lot of people don't know where they're going unconscious. They don't know where they're disembodied in always chosen consciousness. So you need to clean up and refine all these micro moments where you're going unconscious. So where can you do this? Because you do not want to stop at just logic, or you're just never going to fully break through into the desired relationship experience you want. So the first place I would recommend you going is Overnight Success 2.0. This is my signature unconscious communication program. Everything I just told you about, everything I took myself through, and everything I do with my clients privately is included in this program. You will not feel like there's anything missing in regards to the support you will need to get to the other side of this. And it is 50% off the price that it currently is for the last time. Because I've stepped into Dina Rossi Millionaire, my entire product suite, every price you see now is going up next weekend and this weekend. So now is the time to lock into Overnight Success 2.0 for 50% off the price that it is now, and get access to the unconscious communication system and start using it for yourself immediately. The second place I'd recommend going is doing a Love Ascension 1 month intensive. It's an intensive because it's intense. We are together Monday through Thursday for an entire month. And until, let's say, the 11th, you have 4 more days to jump in. 1, before the price doubles. And 2, you'll get an extra week of mentorship when you pay in full before Saturday. I am with you. Imagine having me, the relationship manifestation master, in your back pocket for a month when those little triggers come up. When he texts you something that you do not want to hear from him. When there's another woman in the picture and you're not sure how to respond to it. When you're questioning whether or not you're being used or whether you're wasting your time, right? Imagine having me in your back pocket to mentor you through those moments so we can dissolve them in real time and you can see the natural flip and progression of that relationship when your perception and your identity changes. Imagine having in a month the same person wanting to go from just friends to a fully exclusive committed relationship, or very clearly going on their way there. Because you have me in your back pocket for all those little moments, especially if you are somebody who has been at this work for a long time, you're aware of your patterns, you know where you're going unconscious, but you need that extra level of support. You need that extra help. It is imperative that if we want bigger results in our life, we are allowing ourselves to get the help that is required. I could not have the results in my life that I have now if I did not get mentored on these areas. There is not one area that I talk about today where I have not put quite a bit of investment into myself to create the relationship and the business that I have now, right? So if you are somebody who is already aware of where these patterns are showing up, you need that person to be able to give you a little kickarooski in the butt so that we can clean up anywhere you're stepping out of always chosen consciousness, so that you can wear the costume of always chosen full time. Jump into a Love Ascension 30-day intensive with me. Again, the price is doubling this Saturday. And if you pay in full, you get an extra week of mentorship. The last place, this is for the women that just want me to take them all the way there. Like, you are aware of your patterns, you're aware of where you're going unconscious, but you're like, no, Dina, like I'd love to work with you for a month, but I'd like to work with you for even longer than that, so you can take me into full exclusivity and we can just walk hand in hand right into it together. I can be like the little fly on the wall in your relationship. Then you're going to want to do a Love on Your Level mentorship program. This is my signature program. You can enroll for 3, 6, I think it is 6 or 12 months. So you can enroll for an entire year, half the year, or 3 months. Again, you'll have me in your back pocket, but you'll also have video calls where we do real live somatic work and install always chosen consciousness right into your tissue together, right into your body. A lot of my clients like to call me the always chosen chiropractor because I have a very particular way of installing this consciousness into your body somatically. And on top of it, you get access to all of my current courses, masterclasses, group programs, etc. And I have a new group program and a new wealth consciousness course coming out in the next month, so you'll get access to that as well. And just as a reminder, you guys, all of my prices are going up. All of my prices are going up this weekend and next weekend, so you do not want to miss out on your opportunity to join these things, okay? I will take a couple questions. I got about 5 minutes left, so I will take a couple questions from you guys around creating the relationships, the always chosen consciousness that you want to be in. And if not, I will just hop off for the day. And if you have a question about one of these, feel free to email us at dinarossi@thespacademy.org or shoot us a DM and we will get back to you. Let's see. I know there are some questions up here. So let's see. Do you quantum leap? You have to quantum leap in order to experience this new identity. So did you manifest him back from a previous relationship? No, if you're talking about my relationship that I was in for 6.5 years, I chose to walk away from that relationship. My relationship manifesting journey did not start until my now fiance. Let's see. I think there's a question here. What if we are now aware but dealing with horrible 3D ghosting, third party, and long distance? Get into a Love Ascension intensive, my love, because from your message, I can tell that these circumstances are very real to you, and these circumstances are creating an in-body reaction. When your body is still under the impression that circumstances like this are rock solid, written in stone, and true and problematic, and they mean something about you and your identity, you're going to be reactive to them. And it's not something you should shame yourself for, right? But it is something that needs to change, because as long as your body is viewing your current relationship dynamic through the lens of a problem, then it will continue to be a problem. So we want to dissolve the importance. We want to dissolve your body's reaction to third parties and ghosting and long distance. I've had many clients dealing with similar circumstances stacked on top of each other, right? We have to remove the power from these things so that you can become receptive to commitment and exclusivity, whether that's with that person or somebody even better. Broke up 2 days ago. I want to do it. All right, you guys, I'm going to be popping off. I will repost this training on my YouTube channel if you'd like to go rewatch it. Otherwise, make sure you take advantage of the price increase that's going on next weekend for all my mentorship containers, as well as Overnight Success 2.0, which is 50% off of the current price, but the current price will be doubling. So this 50% off will never be this price again. All right. So all of those links are in my bio. You can feel free to drop me a DM and we will get out those links and applications to you. And I will see you guys again soon. Bye.